Disclaimer: this program contains graphic descriptions of real crimes. Viewer discretion is advised. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. Imagine loving someone so deeply that you build your entire world around them, only to discover that world was a lie. That the person you share your bed with, your secrets with, your future with, was living 3 other lives with 3 other families in 3 different cities. When Noah Mercer uncovered his wife's betrayal, he thought the worst part was the heartbreak. But within just 48 hours of learning the truth, he was gone, vanished, without a trace. Was it heartbreak, revenge, or something far more sinister that silenced him forever? The discovery of Noah's abandoned car at the riverside overlook turned the Mercer case from a private nightmare into a public spectacle. Within hours, local news crews gathered by the guardrails, their cameras capturing flashing police lights against the black water. Reporters whispered the word foul play, but investigators were already piecing together something stranger, something that stretched far beyond Ravenbrook. Detectives hauled Alyssa in for questioning, this time with no gentle gloves. They confronted her with Noah's safe, deposit copies, 3 insurance cards, 3 hospital badges, and marriage records that proved she wasn't just lying. She was living triple lives. Her response was rehearsed, but detectives noticed the crack. She claimed Noah's disappearance was a breakdown, a runaway, insisting he was overwhelmed after discovering her mistakes. But the room chilled when she admitted something crucial. I told him not to go to the police. I begged him. He promised me he'd wait until Tuesday. He didn't keep that promise. That last line, delivered with icy calm, made detectives wonder, was it disappointment? Or a confession hidden in plain sight? Police went back to the only solid lead, the white Vancine trailing Noah's car the night he vanished. Security footage from gas stations along Route 19 showed glimpses of it, its bent back door unmistakable. But when they ran the plate, it came back registered to a construction company that hadn't operated in 5 years. Dead end, or so it seemed. A week later, the van was found abandoned behind a shuttered warehouse 2 towns over. Inside, the seats were scrubbed with bleach, but a single fragment of cloth was lodged beneath the seat rail. Forensics later confirmed it contained Noah's DNA. It was proof Noah had been inside that van. But where he went after, no one could say. When detectives visited Alyssa's 3 other families, the scope of her deception shocked even hardened officers. Derek Stone in Ohio admitted Alyssa handled their finances, explaining away odd travel nurse contracts with stories of staff shortages. He said she was warm, loving, the kind of woman you dream of marrying. Miguel Cruz in Maryland described her as a devoted mother to their daughter, Luna. He showed detectives photos of birthday parties, holidays, even a family trip to the beach. She was everything, he whispered, until you showed me this. Aaron Miller in New Jersey seemed the most broken. Widowed before meeting Alyssa, he said she saved him from despair. Together, they were raising his son. To him, Alyssa was a second chance at happiness. Each man denied involvement in Noah's disappearance, but detectives noticed something striking. All 3 men admitted Alyssa had kept tight control over their schedules, their money, and even who they could talk to. It was as if she managed her 4 worlds like clockwork, ensuring none ever touched. But with Noah's discovery, the gears jammed. The breakthrough came when detectives searched a rented storage unit linked to Alyssa. Inside was the calendar they'd later call the Ledger of Secrets. It was a color-coded planner mapping every detail of her 4 lives. Noah in Pennsylvania, Derek in Ohio, Miguel in Maryland, Aaron in New Jersey. Each family was assigned a color. Each week was carved up into travel, contracts, family days, and curiously, large blocks marked only with the word buffer. It was a chilling revelation. Alyssa had mastered a system to balance her 4 lives seamlessly. Until Noah discovered the cracks, but one page stood out. At the bottom of the ledger, under a section labeled Risks, one line was circled 3 times, Most Dangerous Variable, Noah. Detectives stared at it in silence. Did Alyssa consider her own husband, the one who loved her most, an obstacle to eliminate? From here, the case splintered into competing theories. The wife's revenge. Alyssa orchestrated Noah's disappearance, either directly or through someone else, to protect her empire of lies. The other husband's rage. One of the men, upon discovering Alyssa's betrayal, lashed out at Noah, eliminating the rival who had uncovered the truth. The ghost exit. A smaller camp believed Noah, overwhelmed by betrayal and the impossibility of revealing the truth without destroying 4 families, staged his own disappearance. The letter later found in a donated book in Trenton hinted at this, but handwriting experts couldn't agree if it was truly his. For Detective Erica Hale, one detail refused to fade. The seat in Noah's car slid 2 clicks farther back than he ever drove it. Someone taller had been behind the wheel, and someone else had walked away with Noah, alive or not. As investigators zeroed in on Alyssa, they uncovered one more piece of evidence, a series of anonymous cash payments to a temp worker who had conveniently been hired to disable a hospital security camera on the exact night of Noah's disappearance. The payments traced back to a bank account under one of Alyssa's aliases. When confronted, Alyssa only smiled and whispered, "You'll never find him." And with that, the Mercer case turned darker than anyone imagined. Detective Erica Hale wasn't convinced by Alyssa's calm exterior. Hospital records placed her at work the night Noah vanished, but Hale kept returning to the hole in the evidence, planting 3 camera, the one that conveniently malfunctioned. When Hale pulled maintenance logs, she found something disturbing. The technician who fixed the camera had no previous employment records, no real references, and was paid in cash. The application name, Daniel Klein, was fake, but handwriting on the form matched something else, notes in Alyssa's color, coded ledger. It meant one thing: Alyssa had orchestrated her own alibi. A week later, a jogger came forward. He claimed that on the night Noah disappeared, he saw a woman standing on the river trail near the overlook, clutching an umbrella even though it wasn't raining yet. The jogger remembered her face, sharp cheekbones, dark ponytail, hospital scrubs beneath a heavy coat. When shown a lineup, he pointed at Alyssa without hesitation. Her attorney dismissed him instantly, unreliable. It was dusk, visibility poor. He admits he didn't have his glasses. But Detective Hale saw the jogger's hands shake as he swore. It was her. I'll never forget. Forensic teams swept the trail again, this time with cadaver dogs. The dogs alerted in 2 separate places along the embankment, both near patches of disturbed soil. But when they dug, they found nothing, no remains, no clothing, just earth that seemed too recently packed. It looked like someone had staged the trail, a breadcrumb path deliberately meant to suggest Noah's body had been moved, but without leaving the body itself. By now, Alyssa's triple life was headline news. Derek, Miguel, and Aaron, once oblivious to one another, now found themselves bonded by betrayal. They began talking, piecing together timelines, stories, and details. Alyssa had fed each of them. It became clear she'd been moving money between households. Miguel's savings account had mysterious withdrawals, the exact amounts later showing up in Derek's bank records under the guise of loan repayments. Aaron had signed over power of attorney for a small inheritance to her, funds she'd quietly funneled into her own accounts. When detectives confronted her, with these financial trails, Alyssa said flatly, "I was just trying to take care of everyone. You think that's a crime." But the men saw it differently. For them, Alyssa was no longer a devoted wife. She was a manipulator who'd stolen years of their lives, and they wanted answers about Noah. The most chilling discovery came 2 months later. While tracing burner numbers tied to the white van, investigators found a prepaid cell phone dumped near a rest stop trash can. Its SIM card had been removed, but the device still held fragments of messages. One stood out, 48 HRS, "He's a liability, finish it." The timestamp matched the night before Noah disappeared. Digital forensics revealed the phone's last cell tower ping came from St. Monica's Hospital parking lot, the very place Alyssa was supposedly working her night shift. Detective Hale brought Alyssa back in. This time, instead of direct accusations, she played strategy. She laid out the evidence slowly, the ledger page marking Noah as the dangerous variable, the maintenance log signed in Alyssa's handwriting, the jogger's testimony, the burner phone linked to her hospital's location. Then she leaned across the table and whispered, "We know you didn't do this alone. Who helped you?" For the first time, Alyssa's mask cracked. Her jaw clenched, her eyes wet with something between rage and fear. She said nothing, but silence can sometimes be louder than words. As detectives pressed harder, they noticed Alyssa's fingers twitching, like she wanted to reach for a phone that wasn't there. When Hale asked directly, "Where is Noah?" Alyssa leaned forward and whispered so faintly the recorder almost missed it, "He's closer than you think." And with that, the interrogation ended. But what did she mean? Was Noah buried nearby, hidden alive, or was this just another manipulation in a long chain of lies? Detectives were about to discover a secret hidden along the river that would change everything. Detective Hale ordered another sweep of the river trail. This time, investigators brought ground, penetrating radar, drone surveillance, and divers trained for recovery missions. Everyone expected bones, maybe clothing, maybe nothing at all. Instead, what they uncovered was stranger. Near the spot where cadaver dogs had once alerted, buried beneath layers of silt and clay, they found a metal lockbox wrapped in heavy-duty plastic. The box was wedged deep, as if someone had planted it years earlier. When opened, it contained a stack of Polaroid photos, mostly of Noah with Alyssa. Weddings, vacations, ordinary smiles. A flash drive with encrypted files. And, most disturbingly, a handwritten note in Noah's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I've already disappeared. The truth is more dangerous than I thought. Do not trust her." Handwriting experts confirmed it was Noah's script. But the tone was odd, more paranoid, more resigned than his family remembered. Some wondered, did Noah plant this himself, as part of a plan to vanish, or did Alyssa force him to write it, leaving it as a false breadcrumb? The letter ended with a chilling postscript. "There are others. You won't understand until you see the files." But when forensic techs cracked the flash drive, they found nothing but corrupted fragment, strings of numbers and half-erased documents. It looked deliberate, like someone had wiped it after copying. When detectives showed Alyssa the letter, her composure finally slipped. She laughed, not a nervous laugh, but sharp, bitter mocking. Of course he'd write something like that. Noah always needed control. If you think that proves anything, you're fools. But her eyes betrayed her. For a split second, Hale saw fear. Meanwhile, a break came from an unexpected place. Neighbors near the overlook. One elderly couple recalled seeing two figures walking down the trail that night. One tall, one shorter, hunched like they were being pushed or dragged. They assumed it was a drunken quarrel. Only later, after news broke, did they realize they may have seen Noah's last moments. But here's the detail that haunted detectives most. The taller figure, carried something shiny in one hand. The wife swore it was an umbrella. Detective Hale remembered the jogger's testimony that Alyssa had been seen on the trail holding an umbrella even though it wasn't raining. Now the neighbors confirmed it. The umbrella became a symbol, unnecessary, out of place, but consistent. Whoever carried it was there for a reason. As the investigation deepened, Hale uncovered something overlooked. Hospital badge swipes proved Alyssa had entered St. Monica's that night, but there was no record of her ever leaving. Cameras near the back exit caught a figure in scrubs slipping out around 7:50 p.m., 15 minutes before Noah's car was spotted at the overlook. The footage was grainy, but Hale froze the frame the figure carried, an umbrella. Detectives now had circumstantial evidence linking Alyssa to the trail, the umbrella, and the suspicious lockbox. But then, just as they prepared to arrest her, a new tip arrived. A man claiming to be Noah was spotted at a motel 2 states away, alive, disheveled, and asking for cash. If it was true, everything they thought they knew about the Mercer case was about to collapse. 2 states away, at a rundown roadside motel, the clerk swore he'd seen a man matching Noah Mercer's description. Disheveled, exhausted, eyes darting like a fugitive, he paid in cash, asked for the room farthest from the road, and insisted the blinds stay closed. But here's the part that rattled detectives. The clerk said the man introduced himself as Nathan Stone. That name, Stone, was one of Alyssa's other married aliases. By the time police arrived, the room was empty. Sheets stripped, trash can cleaned. The only things left behind were a torn receipt for canned food, purchased at a gas station down the road, a Gideon Bible with 3 words scrawled inside the back cover, "Don't believe her." Forensics lifted partial fingerprints from the doorknob and nightstand, and they matched Noah's. This meant one of 2 things. Noah had been alive after his disappearance, hiding under a new name, or Alyssa, or someone working with her, had staged the entire scene, planting fingerprints and notes to confuse the investigation. When confronted, Alyssa didn't flinch. Instead, she smirked. "See, he ran away. He was weak. He couldn't face the truth. That's why you'll never find him." Her attorney leaned forward, insisting this was proof Noah was alive, and that the case should shift from potential homicide to voluntary disappearance. But Detective Hale wasn't convinced. The handwriting in the Bible didn't quite match Noah's natural slant. And if Noah was running, why use one of Alyssa's fake last names? Meanwhile, digital experts made progress with the flash drive found in the Riverside lockbox. Fragments of corrupted files revealed a chilling pattern. Hospital payroll reports, travel vouchers, and a ledger of book payments, large sums being shuffled between accounts linked to Alyssa's aliases. It wasn't just about secret families, it was financial fraud on a massive scale, and Noah, as a finance analyst, would have recognized the discrepancies instantly. Was that the real reason he vanished? Did he stumble not only on Alyssa's double or triple life, but also on something darker, something criminal that reached beyond their marriage? As detectives pulled surveillance footage from the motel's surroundings, they spotted something chilling. A tall figure in a hooded jacket appeared in multiple frames, always at a distance, always watching. The figure never entered the motel, but lingered in the parking lot. At one point, they stood under a broken streetlight, staring directly toward Noah's room. And then at 3:07 a.m., they vanished into the woods behind the property. The motel sighting raised more questions than answers. Was Noah truly alive, hiding under an alias, or was someone using his identity as bait? And who was the hooded figure shadowing him in the night? Detective Hale was about to uncover a piece of evidence near that motel that would shatter everything she thought she knew about the Mercer case. Detectives combed the wooded area behind the motel where the hooded figure had vanished. For days, nothing surfaced, until a deputy found a half-buried duffel bag near a hollow log. Inside were items that froze everyone in place. A men's hoodie stained faintly with blood. A prepaid phone identical to the one with the 48 HRS. "He's a liability" text, and a wallet containing Noah Mercer's driver's license. But here's the twist. The wallet had no fingerprints on it. Not Noah's, not anyone's. It had been carefully wiped. Surveillance cameras from a nearby bus station gave investigators their first clear image of the hooded figure. He wasn't Noah. He wasn't one of the three husbands either. He was Ethan Hale, Detective Erica Hale's estranged younger brother, a man with a criminal record for fraud, petty theft, and forgery. The revelation rocked the case. Why was a detective's own brother shadowing the investigation? And more importantly, was Alyssa connected to him? When questioned about Ethan, Alyssa played her part carefully. "I don't know him. I've never seen that man in my life." But detectives pulled her phone records and found a series of encrypted calls routed through third-party apps. Several of them traced back to Ethan's last known burner phone. The connections were undeniable. Alyssa wasn't just leading multiple lives, she had accomplices. While combing through digital fragments on the recovered phones, forensic techs uncovered an audio file, corrupted but partially restorable. Noah's voice could be heard, frantic, whispering, "They said I had 2 days. Please, if anyone finds this, don't trust her. She's not who you think. She's working with." The file cut off abruptly, the chilling part. The timestamp was logged just hours before Noah vanished. Detective Hale dug deeper into Alyssa's financials. The ledgers weren't just about families and fraud. They included regular payments to an unknown entity under the initials EH. EH wasn't just Ethan Hale. It was also the alias for a fourth identity Alyssa had built for herself. Not Stone, not Cruz, not Miller. This one was entirely separate, a ghost persona hidden beneath layers of fake documents. The payments suggested Alyssa and Ethan were running something larger together: insurance fraud, identity theft, perhaps even trafficking sensitive hospital data. Noah hadn't just uncovered her marriages, he'd stumbled onto an operation that stretched far beyond their home. As detectives closed in, Alyssa was caught on surveillance, leaving a storage facility under her ghost identity. She carried a heavy black case, loaded it into her trunk, and drove off into the night. Inside that case, investigators believed, was either the final piece of evidence or the answer to Noah's fate. Detectives obtained a warrant and intercepted Alyssa's vehicle hours after she left the storage unit. The black case sat in her trunk, locked with a double latch. When pried open, the entire room fell silent. Inside, bundled tightly in vacuum-sealed plastic, were dozens of passports and IDs, all with Alyssa's photo, but under different names. Alongside them were prepaid debit cards, burner phones, and stacks of cash in mixed currencies. But that wasn't the most disturbing find. At the bottom of the case was a blood-stained wristwatch. The engraving on the back read, "To Noah, love Alyssa." News of the discovery broke instantly. Headlines branded Alyssa as a black widow of many lives. Reporters painted her as a master manipulator who thrived on deception and fed off secrecy. Detective Hale stood before the press, holding back personal turmoil as cameras flashed. Her voice was steady. "We believe the evidence found suggests premeditation. The search for Noah Mercer is now officially being treated as a homicide investigation." But the case was far from solved. Meanwhile, Ethan Hale, the detective's estranged brother, was picked up after his image surfaced on surveillance tapes. Pressed under interrogation, he broke. Ethan admitted Alyssa had paid him to act as her cleaner. His job was to disable cameras, transport burner phones, and create false trails. He claimed he never harmed Noah, but he knew what Alyssa was capable of. She told me he was a liability, that he was going to ruin everything. I thought she just wanted him scared off. I didn't think she meant gone for good. Forensic techs finally cracked the corrupted flash drive from the river lockbox. What they found was explosive, spreadsheets, and transaction logs proving Alyssa and Ethan were funneling millions through her hospital contracts using fake names and insurance claims. Noah hadn't just uncovered her families, he'd uncovered a massive fraud and laundering scheme that made him not just a betrayed husband, but a whistleblower. And whistleblowers rarely last long. When confronted with the evidence, the wristwatch, Ethan's confession, the flash drive, Alyssa did something chilling. She smiled. You can stack your evidence as high as you want, but you'll never prove he's dead and without a body. You've got nothing. She leaned back in her chair, confident, almost triumphant. Just as detectives felt the case closing in, a shocking twist hit their desks. A fresh ATM withdrawal made using Noah Mercer's bank card. The transaction happened less than 24 hours earlier, in a town 300 miles away. The surveillance photo attached to the withdrawal request showed a man, and he looked exactly like Noah. Detectives reviewed the ATM surveillance photo. The man looked exactly like Noah Mercer. Same build, same tired eyes, even the same jacket he'd been last seen wearing. But the timestamp was undeniable. This was taken months after his disappearance. If it truly was Noah, then everything, the lockbox, the motel sighting, the wristwatch, had been part of a cruel misdirection. But when investigators slowed the footage frame by frame, one detail jumped out. The man's left hand bore a small scar near the thumb. Noah never had that scar. The team debated fiercely. Was this an imposter, planted to throw off the investigation? Or had Noah somehow survived, wounded, and changed just enough to raise doubt? The cash withdrawal was for $200, exactly the daily limit on Noah's account. Whoever used the card knew his details intimately. When shown the ATM photo, Alyssa let out a soft laugh. See, he's alive. He just doesn't want to come home. Can you blame him? Detective Hale leaned in. If that's true, why did you declare him dead to his employer just 2 weeks ago? Alyssa's smile faltered for the first time. Further digging into the motel room where Nathan Stone had stayed revealed a receipt for canned food signed in a messy scrawl. Forensic comparison showed it was not Noah's handwriting. This pointed toward a coordinated impersonation. Someone was deliberately moving in Noah's shadow, using his bank card, his IDs, and even mimicking his appearance. The question was why. Referencing surveillance from the ATM location, investigators noticed a figure lingering in the background, hooded, tall, just like the man spotted at the motel weeks earlier, and when enhanced, the footage revealed a glint, a distinctive watch on his wrist, a cheap silver brand scratched along the face. Detective Hale recognized it instantly. It wasn't Noah's. It belonged to her brother, Ethan. The evidence suggested Alyssa and Ethan were staging sightings to make it appear Noah was alive, keeping police chasing ghosts while concealing what truly happened on the river trail. But then, another shock. Bank records showed a series of offshore transfers initiated in Noah's name, funneling money into an account that detectives traced back to Alyssa's fourth identity. The cover-up wasn't sloppy. It was meticulous, and it was ongoing. As the task force prepared to move on Alyssa and Ethan with new warrants, a chilling call came in. A fisherman downstream had discovered a waterlogged duffel bag tangled in his nets. Inside were bones, clothing, and a wallet. The ID inside read, Noah Mercer. The fisherman thought at first he'd snagged a log, but as he tugged the heavy mass up from the river, water poured out, and the outline of a duffel bag emerged. Inside, wrapped in layers of plastic and weighted with stones, were bones, fragile, yellowed from the water, tangled with fabric. Tucked in a side pocket was a wallet. Inside, Noah Mercer's driver's license. The case had just taken its darkest turn. At the coroner's office, bones were catalogued carefully. Initial impressions suggested they belonged to a male, mid-30s, consistent with Noah. But DNA tests told a different story. The remains did not match Noah. They belonged to an unidentified male, approximately the same age and build. Someone had planted another man's body, dressed in Noah's clothes, and stuffed his ID into the wallet. This meant one thing: someone wanted investigators to believe Noah was dead, even though his true fate remained unknown. When told of the discovery, Alyssa staged tears in front of the cameras, dabbing her eyes with a neatly folded tissue. He didn't deserve this. Noah was a good man. He just couldn't handle the truth. Detectives noticed her performance, but the public ate it up. Some began to question whether the police were unfairly targeting a grieving widow. Behind the scenes, however, Detective Hale wasn't fooled. With the remains proven false, Hale revisited the motel, the ATM. The hooded figure and the offshore accounts. A picture was forming. Someone had used another man's body to stage Noah's death. Alyssa and Ethan were actively planting false trails to keep suspicion moving in circles. Every piece of evidence, the lockbox, the motel scrawl, the ATM footage, was part of a carefully constructed illusion, but illusions can't last forever. Under renewed interrogation, Ethan Hale cracked. He admitted that Alyssa had orchestrated the duffel bag planting. She'd lured a drifter with promises of money, then arranged for his disappearance. His body became the stand, then, for Noah. She said once the cops thought they had a body, they'd close the case. Nobody would keep digging. But Ethan swore he didn't know where Noah truly was. She never told me that part. He whispered, only that he was gone. For Detective Hale, this revelation raised terrifying possibilities. Had Alyssa killed Noah and hidden his body elsewhere, or was Noah alive? Trapped somewhere as leverage against exposure, the duffel bag wasn't closure, it was misdirection, and it meant the real story of Noah Mercer was still out there, waiting. As investigators pressed deeper, a new anonymous letter arrived at Ravenbrook PD. The handwriting was jagged but familiar. It read, "Stop looking in the river. You're wasting time. Look in the place where she kept us all." The letter was signed simply N. The anonymous letter rattled the task force. "Stop looking in the river. You're wasting time. Look in the place where she kept us all." A Detective Hale read the line again and again. Us all, not him. Whoever wrote it implied more than one victim, or more than one secret. Hale pulled every property record under Alyssa's real and alias names. Buried in the files was an abandoned farmhouse outside Laurel, Maryland, leased years earlier under the name Eliza Hartwell, a variation of Alyssa's fourth identity. It was remote, run down, and completely off the radar. When the task force entered the property, the air reeked of mildew and old dust. The house itself was stripped bare. No furniture, no food, nothing but cobwebs and silence. But the basement told a different story. Along one wall were 3 makeshift sleeping cots, a child's toy, a stack of canned goods, handcuffs bolted into the floor, and on a shelf, lined neatly, were spiral notebooks, each one labeled with initials NMDS, MC, AM Noah Mercer, Derek Stone, Miguel Cruz, Aaron Miller. The notebooks weren't diaries, they were logs, detailed records of Alyssa's movements, finances, and private conversations. Notes written in different handwritings, as if Alyssa had made each man document his own life, then stored the evidence here like trophies. In the corner, police found a locked cabinet. Inside were folders filled with identification documents belonging to people detectives didn't recognize. At least 6 more names, all linked to false medical credentials, all with Alyssa's photo in some form. It was bigger than 4 marriages, bigger than fraud. Alyssa had been building a network of false identities, and Noah had stumbled on the foundation of it all. In the final box, detectives uncovered a small digital recorder. When powered up, it played a short clip, the voice unmistakable. "Noah's, this is Noah Mercer. If you find this, I don't know if I'm alive. She said this house is where she keeps the truth. If she finds out I've recorded this, it's over. Please. Don't let her win. The recorder cut to static. When shown the evidence, Alyssa's composure cracked for the first time. She screamed at the detectives, calling the farmhouse irrelevant, denying she'd ever set foot there, but her fingerprints were on the cabinet, and her handwriting was all over. The logs. Ethan Hale, already in custody, finally admitted the farmhouse was Alyssa's safe house, a place where she stored backups of every false life she created. He swore Noah had been taken there once, alive, but after that night, Alyssa moved him somewhere else. As detectives prepared to dig deeper into the farmhouse property, cadaver dogs alerted near the old barn out back. Investigators pried up rotting floorboards, and beneath them, buried in shallow earth, they found a sealed metal drum. When the lid was cracked open, the stench of decay filled the air. Inside were bones, and a piece of fabric that looked eerily familiar, a jacket identical to the one Noah wore the night he vanished. When the coroner's team removed the drum from beneath the floorboards, the air thickened with dread. Inside were skeletal remains, badly decomposed, tangled in scraps of fabric. The most striking item was a waterlogged jacket, frayed but unmistakable. It matched the description of the one Noah had worn the night he vanished. Detectives held their breath as DNA tests were rushed to the lab. For days, everyone braced for confirmation that Noah had finally been found. The lab results came back with a shock. The bones did not belong to Noah Mercer. Instead, they matched another man reported missing 2 years earlier, a contract nurse named Caleb Warren, who'd briefly worked at the same hospital where Alyssa had taken assignments. The revelation deepened the horror. Alyssa had just fabricated lives. She'd left behind real bodies. Digging into Caleb Warren's background, investigators discovered a troubling pattern. He had filed a workplace complaint about discrepancies in patient billing records, records later tied to Alyssa's fraudulent schemes. Shortly afterward, he vanished. No body, no suspects, no answers, until now. It painted a chilling picture. When someone uncovered Alyssa's lies, they didn't just disappear. They were silenced. Detective Hale sat across from Alyssa, holding Caleb's file. He found your fraud. He ended up in a drum. Noah found your families. Where's he now? Alyssa leaned forward, eyes cold as glass. Maybe he ran. Maybe he drowned. Maybe he's right behind you. You'll never know. Her defiance only sharpened suspicion. With Caleb's remains tied directly to Alyssa, prosecutors moved swiftly to charge her with murder, but the absence of Noah's body complicated everything. Without proof of his death, Alyssa's defense argued she couldn't be tied to another. Homicide. In court, Alyssa sat poised, hair neatly pulled back, answering every question with calculated precision. But behind the scenes, detectives felt the weight of one truth. Alyssa had proven capable of killing before, and Noah had uncovered even more than Caleb ever had. Just as the trial preparations began, a new piece of evidence emerged. Surveillance footage from a truck stop dated 3 weeks after Noah's disappearance. The grainy video showed a man who looked like Noah, gaunt and hollow-eyed, climbing into the cab of a long-haul truck. He turned once toward the camera, his lips forming words too faint to hear. Before the truck pulled away into the night, detectives scrutinized the footage from the truck stop. The man's resemblance to Noah was undeniable, gaunt, pale, but alive. His lips moved as he glanced toward the camera, but the grainy video couldn't capture the word. A lip-reading expert later suggested, he said, "Help me." The truck he climbed into belonged to a company based 3 states away, driven by a man named Carl Jensen, a long hauler with no criminal record. Carl was pulled in for questioning. He swore he had never seen Noah Mercer, but when detectives showed him the footage, Carl looked shaken. That man, he hitched a ride that night, said his name was Nathan, paid me cash, didn't talk much, got off near the state line. Just vanished. Carl passed a polygraph, but investigators weren't satisfied. Why would Noah, or an imposter, use the name Nathan, one of Alyssa's alias surnames? The truck's GPS logs revealed multiple fuel stops along its route. At two of them, cameras captured the same figure. Gruffy beard Noah's build, always keeping to the shadows, always paying cash. At the third stop, the figure wasn't alone. A woman with dark hair and sharp cheekbones stood beside him, handing him something small before walking away. The woman looked almost exactly like Alyssa when confronted with the new footage. Alyssa's control slipped. "That's not me. You're twisting everything." "I wasn't there," but her hands trembled, and when pressed, she muttered under her breath, almost too low to hear, "He should have stayed gone." Detectives documented the slip carefully. Meanwhile, forensics enhanced the truck stop video when Noah, or the man resembling him, looked at the camera. The words weren't just "help me." Side-by-side analysis revealed he mouthed a full phrase, "She has the others." The words sent a chill through the task force. The others? Who else was there, just as investigators prepared to expand their search across the trucking route? A chilling discovery was made at another rest area. A discarded burner phone taped beneath a payphone receiver. On it was a single unsent draft message. "She won't stop, not until every secret is buried." "Don't trust." The draft ended mid-sentence, as if someone had been interrupted. The letter, signed N, had pointed investigators toward Alyssa's safe house, but the discovery of Caleb Warren's remains and Noah's missing trail suggested the farmhouse wasn't the end. It was only one link in a chain. Detective Hale turned her attention back to the truck stop footage. The phrase Noah had mouthed, "She has the others," echoed in her mind. Who were the others? Other husbands, other victims, or something far worse? Tracing the long-haul truck's GPS route, investigators found an odd pattern. At 3 separate points along the highway, the driver's logs included unexplained stops in isolated industrial areas. Each time, surveillance footage showed glimpses of the hooded figure Ethan Hale. At the second stop, investigators found a small storage shed rented under another one of Alyssa's. Ghost identities. Inside, stacks of medical records, forged IDs, and more burner phones. It was a hidden command center for her entire operation, and tucked inside a manila folder was something chilling, a recent photograph of Noah. He looked thin, exhausted, and alive. Forensic analysts studied the photo. A wall behind Noah bore a peeling mural of a beach scene. After days of searching, they traced it to an abandoned rest area diner along the trucking route, closed for renovations years earlier. It was possible Noah had been kept there. A tactical team stormed the abandoned diner at dawn. Inside were empty food wrappers, stained blankets, and signs of recent occupation. On the wall, the mural matched perfectly, but Noah wasn't there. Instead, carved into the wooden counter were 4 words scratched deep with something sharp: "She owns the truth." When shown the photo of Noah in the diner, Alyssa's mask cracked for the second time. She whispered something under her breath the microphone barely caught. He wasn't supposed to leave. The slip gave detectives a grim certainty. Noah had been alive after his disappearance. Alyssa, or her network, had kept him hidden. The question now was whether he'd escaped or been silenced once more. Just as investigators regrouped, another envelope arrived at Ravenbrook PD. Inside was a memory card. On it was a short, shaky video clip. Noah staring directly into the camera, whispering one haunting line before the feed cut to static. "If you're watching this, it's already too late." The clip of Noah was only 22 seconds long, but every frame was dissected. His face was gaunt, his beard uneven, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. He looked terrified. "If you're watching this, it's already too late." Behind him, investigators spotted a single clue, a red exit sign flickering above a metal door. On the wall beside him was graffiti, 3 letters scrawled in black spray paint. RML. Detectives canvassed possible locations, and the graffiti gave them a lead. RML was a tag used by a local gang in a run-down industrial corridor 2 counties over. Several abandoned factories there had been used for squats, drug deals, and storage. One of them, an old textile mill, was located less than a mile from one of the truckers' unexplained stops. The task force raided the textile mill. Inside, they found evidence of recent occupation. Half-eaten food, empty water bottles, and chains bolted into a concrete pillar. But no Noah. Instead, they found something worse. A blood-stained scrap of fabric matching the shirt Noah had been wearing in the video. DNA tests confirmed the blood was his. When confronted with the discovery, Alyssa tilted her head and smiled as if amused. "You'll keep finding pieces." "That's all he is now, pieces." Her lawyer tried to cut her off, but the damage was done. For the first time, prosecutors had physical evidence tying Noah to captivity and harm. Under pressure, Ethan Hale admitted he had driven supplies to the mill, but insisted he never saw Noah directly. "She made me deliver food, clothes, meds. She said he was sick. But I swear I never went inside the room." When asked why, Ethan broke down, "Because she said if I saw him, I'd never get the image out of my head." As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered Alyssa's true reach. The forged medical records, burner phones, and multiple aliases pointed not just fraud, but to a criminal network that may have spanned state lines. Noah's disappearance wasn't just about a jealous wife silencing her husband. It was about a man who had stumbled onto an empire of lies and paid the price. The final frames of Noah's video, thought to be static, were enhanced by forensic video experts. Hidden in the digital noise, they spotted a reflection in the exit sign above him, a woman's silhouette holding something metallic. The reflection's shape matched an umbrella. Video experts slowed the enhanced clip frame by frame. In the reflection of the flickering exit sign, the silhouette of a woman was clear, slim, hair tied back, holding something metallic. It wasn't a gun, it wasn't a knife, it was unmistakably an umbrella, the same out-of-place prop witnesses had described on the river trail the night Noah disappeared, the same umbrella that seemed to follow Alyssa's movements like a signature. The message was chilling. Alyssa had been there when the video was recorded. The exit sign itself provided another lead. Investigators compared the design and flicker pattern against city code records. Only a handful of buildings used that particular model of signage installed during the late 1990s. One of them was an abandoned underground parking garage 3 miles from the textile mill. It had been closed after structural damage, but was still accessible through a hidden side entrance. When detectives entered the garage, the air was damp and reeked of mold. The beams groaned above, and the silence was heavy. In a far corner, near a rusted stairwell, they found the exact exit sign from the video, still flickering faintly. On the ground below it were drag marks in the dust, leading to a locked maintenance room. Inside, a chair bolted to the floor, shackles hanging loose, and stains that fluoresced under forensic light. Noah had been here, recently. Propped in the corner of the room was an umbrella, the same brand and color described by multiple witnesses. Its handle was cracked, and under the black light, faint traces of Noah's blood were revealed along the fabric. The umbrella was no longer just a prop. It was evidence. Confronted with the umbrella, Alyssa said nothing. She simply stared at it, then turned her eyes on Detective Hale with an expression halfway between triumph and warning. Her lawyer demanded the interview end, but Hale noted Alyssa's lips twitching, almost as though she was whispering to herself. The recording picked it up faintly. "He's still running." Hours later, investigators received a new tip. A man matching Noah's description had been spotted at a rest stop convenience store that same morning, frail, desperate, buying only water, before disappearing on foot into nearby woods. The clerk swore his hands were shaking, and he kept repeating, "They'll find me. They always find me." For the first time, the case shifted from recovery to pursuit. Was Noah alive and on the run? Had he escaped Alyssa's grip only to become a ghost of himself, hunted by the very network she built? Detectives mobilized search teams into the woods, knowing this could be their last chance to find Noah alive. The woods stretched for miles, dense pines ankle, deep brush and fog rolling low across the ground. Teams fanned out with dogs, thermal drones, and flashlights cutting through the early morning gray. Every step carried weight. They weren't just looking for evidence anymore, they were chasing a living ghost. An officer spotted torn fabric snagged on a branch, gray cotton, damp from the night air. DNA later confirmed it was Noah's. A few yards farther, searchers found empty water bottles and a protein bar wrapper. He had been there, he was moving, surviving, but each discovery raised the same question. Was Noah running from them, or from Alyssa's unseen network that still shadowed his every step? Near a clearing, cadaver dogs alerted briefly, only to lose the scent in shifting wind. Then a second dog caught a fresher trail. Human sweat and fear. The trail led deeper into the woods to an abandoned hunting cabin. The door was ajar, the hinges rusted. Inside, dust lay thick except for one corner, a cot recently used, blankets damp, a candle stub still warm. Pinned beneath the cot's mattress was a note scratched onto cardboard in shaky handwriting. "Stop searching. She's everywhere." As night fell, thermal drones picked up a heat signature at the tree line, a tall figure in a hood. When officers moved in, the figure slipped away with uncanny precision, vanishing into the dark like he knew the woods better than anyone. But one camera caught a partial frame. The glint of a cheap silver watch. It was Ethan's. Back at the station, detectives confronted Alyssa with the discoveries. The note, the cabin, the reappearance of her brother. She only smirked. "You think you're closing in. But you'll never catch him. Not him. And not me. You're playing in my maze now." Her words hung like poison. The next morning, searchers found footprints leading out of the woods toward an abandoned railway line. Beside the tracks lay a shredded backpack. Inside was Noah's journal, its last entry scrawled in frantic ink. "They're closing in. If I disappear again, this time it's forever." Noah's journal was soaked and shredded, but investigators carefully pieced the pages together. His handwriting grew more frantic with each entry. He described hearing footsteps at night, the man with the watch, watching from the trees, and the fear that even the police couldn't protect him. The last legible page read, "She built this like a web. Every road, every safe house, every face. I thought I could outrun it, but she always knew where I'd be. If you find this, don't look for me. Look for the ones who never made it out." The words "never made it out" were underlined twice. Fresh boot prints led detectives along the abandoned railway line. Half a mile down, they discovered a hidden service tunnel. The entrance was partially collapsed, but inside were signs of recent activity, footprints in the dust, a discarded food wrapper, and chalk markings on the wall. Circles, arrows, and one word repeated, "Run." The tunnel was like a labyrinth. Teams pushed deeper, flashlights slicing through the dark, until they reached a locked metal door. Etched crudely into the rust were three letters, N, M. When officers forced the door open, they stepped into a small chamber. The air was stale, the floor damp. In the corner sat an old metal chair, one shackle still hanging from its armrest. On the wall above it, smeared in what looked like dried blood, was a single phrase. "She found me." The words were jagged, desperate, and chillingly final. Thermal scans of the tunnel showed another faint heat signature escaping through a ventilation shaft before the team arrived. A discarded cigarette butt near the exit tested positive for Ethan Hale's DNA. He had been there. Watching, waiting, but why, if Alyssa's brother was still roaming free? Did he linger at every site tied to Noah? Was he protecting him, hunting him, or following Alyssa's orders to the end? When detectives told Alyssa about the journal and the blood scrawled message, she laughed softly. Noah always was dramatic. "If you think that means anything, you're more foolish than I thought." But her voice quivered. For the first time, her mask seemed to slip. Before investigators left the tunnel, one officer spotted something wedged between the chair's rusted frame and the floor. It was a USB drive wrapped in tape. When plugged in back at the lab, the drive revealed a video file. The first frame froze every heart in the room. Noah, staring into the lens, whispering, "This is my last chance to tell the truth." The file on the USB drive was grainy, filmed in low light, the camera propped on a shaky surface. Noah sat in the frame, thinner than ever, eyes sunken, his voice a hoarse whisper. "If you're watching this, I don't know how much time I have. She thinks she's erased me, but I've been keeping records, everything she's done, everyone she's hurt. If this reaches you, it means I failed to stop her." "But maybe you still can." Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. He flipped through it, holding pages up to the camera. Each page listed names, dates, and sums of money. Some names matched Alyssa's known aliases, others were unfamiliar. Doctors, contractors, even law enforcement officers. It's bigger than marriages, bigger than fraud. She pays them to look away, to clean up, to move bodies. Caleb wasn't the first. I don't think I'll be the last. He coughed hard, clutching his side, then continued, "Ethan helps her. But he's scared too. He wants out, but she has a leash on him. Everyone who touches her web is caught." Noah leaned closer to the camera, his voice cracking. "If you're hearing me, don't just look for me. Look for the safe houses, the ledgers, the children who don't know who their real father is. She's keeping them all tied up in lies." Then, almost breaking down, he whispered, "Tell Jenna I'm sorry. Tell her I tried." The screen went black. The video was damning. Prosecutors now had proof of Alyssa's criminal network, evidence far beyond fraud or bigamy, but it was still not proof of Noah's death. The defense argued he was alive, sending paranoid ramblings, and that Alyssa was being framed by her unstable husband. Yet for detectives, one fact stood out. Noah had mentioned more safe houses. The farmhouse and the diner weren't the end. There were others waiting to be discovered. When pressed about the video, Ethan Hale panicked. He swore he didn't know about the recording, but admitted something chilling. She said he was gone, but not dead. Not yet. Detectives seized on the phrase. If Noah wasn't dead, where was he? 2 days later, a new tip arrived. A hiker deep in the Appalachian foothills reported hearing desperate cries echoing from an abandoned mine shaft. The words were faint but unforgettable. "Help me. Please help." Search teams mobilized at once. Could Noah still be alive, imprisoned in the darkness of the mountains, or was it another cruel echo planted by Alyssa's hand? Search teams arrived at the old Appalachian mine at dawn. The shaft was boarded over decades earlier, but the boards had been pried away recently. Inside, the air was damp and suffocating, carrying the faint echo of dripping water. Ropes and headlamps guided investigators downward. Every sound, boots on gravel, distant creaks, seemed amplified. Somewhere below, the faintest whisper echoed, "Help." The mine opened into a wide chamber where rusted tools and rotting timbers lay scattered. In the corner, searchers found evidence of recent use: a thin mattress, empty cans of beans, and a half-burned candle stub. Pinned to the wall with a rusted nail was another scrap of cardboard, Noah's handwriting scrawled across it. "If you hear me, you're too late. Farther in, the dogs alerted at a narrow passage. The tunnel was half-collapsed, forcing officers to crawl." At the end, they reached a chamber sealed by a steel grate. Behind it was a crude cell, chains bolted to the rock wall, scraps of clothing, and what looked like fingernail scratches etched deep into stone. One word repeated again and again: "Run." Forensics confirmed small blood traces inside the cell matched Noah, but there was no body, no man waiting in the darkness. The cell was empty, abandoned but recently. And then came the discovery that shifted everything. A length of rope cut clean, as though someone had freed him, or taken him. Thermal drones spotted a heat signature fleeing from a rear exit of the mine. A team gave chase, but the figure melted into the forest. At the mouth of the exit, they found a discarded jacket. Inside the pocket was a crushed pack of cigarette, Sethan Hale's brand. He had been there. Again, back at the station, Alyssa's face lit with a twisted kind of pride when told of the mine's contents. He lasted longer than I thought. Detective Hale snapped, "Where is he now?" Alyssa only smiled. "Closer than you think." As the mine search concluded, divers preparing to check a flooded lower shaft uncovered something metallic glinting beneath the water. When pulled up, it was a steel lockbox sealed tight. Inside, investigators feared, could be Noah's final truth, or proof his ghostly trail had reached its end. Divers wrestled the steel lockbox from the muck, its edges corroded but intact. When pried open, a gush of foul smelling water spilled out, followed by a bundle wrapped in waxed canvas. Inside were 3 items: a spiral notebook soaked at the edges but legible in the center, a flash drive sealed in a waterproof bag, and a wedding ring, tarnished but engraved on the inside, "To Noah, love Alyssa." The notebook contained frantic entries in Noah's handwriting. The pages described the mine shaft, the chains, and the man with the watch, delivering food but never speaking. One entry stood out. "She said I could live if I erased everything, if I pretended none of it happened, but every lie she told grows heavier. I can't carry them for her. If this book is found, it means I chose truth over survival." Forensic teams cracked open the flash drive. On it were hundreds of documents, financial ledgers, lists of names, offshore bank transfers, and detailed logs of Alyssa's movements between her multiple families. It was the master record, everything Noah had pieced together, proof not just of her triple marriages, but of a criminal empire built on fraud, blackmail, and silence. It was enough to dismantle Alyssa's web once and for all. The presence of Noah's wedding ring was more haunting than anything. Was it left as a symbol of surrender, or had someone forced him to give it up before killing him? The ring was blood-stained on the inner band. When detectives confronted Alyssa with the lockbox evidence, she sat motionless, lips pressed tight, eyes unblinking. For once, there was no smirk, no clever denial. Finally, she whispered, "He was never supposed to find that." It wasn't an admission of murder, but it was enough. With Caleb Warren's confirmed remains, Ethan's confession, the lockbox evidence, and Noah's own words, prosecutors prepared to charge Alyssa not only with fraud and bigamy, but with conspiracy, kidnapping, and murder. Yet one question still hung heavy: where was Noah's body? On the final page of the notebook, Noah had scrawled a last message, messy, slanted, and written as if in a rush. "If you think this ends here, it doesn't." She has another. Beneath the words was a crude map, lines pointing away from the mine, deeper into the mountains. The crude drawing the map was little more than a shaky sketch, jagged lines for mountains, a circle for the mine shaft, and a crude arrow pointing deeper into the range. At the end of the arrow was a single word written in all caps, "Her." Detectives debated its meaning. Did Noah mean Alyssa herself, or someone else Alyssa had hidden away? A search team followed the map's direction, hiking through steep ridges and tangled brush. After nearly 6 miles, they reached a clearing where the remains of an old logging camp stood, half-collapsed cabins, rusting equipment, and an overgrown trail leading farther into the woods. There, wedged between 2 boulders, they found a makeshift marker, 3 stacked stones with Noah's initials scratched faintly into the surface. It was breadcrumb. The trail ended at a single standing cabin, its windows boarded, door chained shut. Breaking it open, investigators stepped into stale air heavy with mildew and something metallic. Blood. Inside, the walls were lined with notebooks, photos, and scraps of paper. It was a shrine. Alyssa's web, pictures of her with each family, receipts, fake IDs pinned like trophies. On a table in the center was a single Polaroid. Noah alive, seated in the very chair found in the mine, his eyes swollen, his hands bound. On the back of the photo, a single word, remember. Behind the cabin, in a shallow fire pit, investigators found fragments of bone mixed with ash. Forensics confirmed they were human, but too degraded to identify. Were they Noah's or someone else's victim in Alyssa's web? When detectives showed Alyssa the Polaroid, she finally broke her silence. He wanted the truth remembered. I wanted it erased. That's the difference between us. She leaned forward, eyes glinting. But you'll never prove which one of us won. That night, surveillance spotted Ethan Hale near the mountain roads. He fled when approached, leaving behind a backpack. Inside were medical supplies, canned food, and a flashlight. The implication was clear. Ethan had been keeping someone alive out there. But was it Noah, or someone else Alyssa had trapped in her web of lies? On the last page of one of the cabin's notebooks, a message was written in smeared ink. She isn't working alone. There's another woman. Find her, and you'll find me. The scribbled line in the notebook, she isn't working alone. There's another woman. Find her, and you'll find me, landed like a bombshell. For months, investigators believed Alyssa was the lone mastermind. But Noah's warning suggested she had a partner, someone operating in the shadows, keeping the web alive. Detective Hale and her team combed through Alyssa's phone records, offshore transactions, and burner accounts. A recurring name surfaced, Marissa Lang, a nurse anesthetist who had briefly overlapped with Alyssa on several travel contracts years earlier. Marissa had disappeared from official employment records 5 years ago, yet her name appeared in the ledgers Alyssa had kept hidden. Payments, transfers, cover jobs, and a chilling note scrawled in Alyssa's handwriting. M.L. handles what I can't. Digging deeper, investigators uncovered that Marissa Lang had legally changed her name twice, moving between states and avoiding detection. But in each city, she'd left behind whispers, rumors of patients overbilled, medical supplies missing, and colleagues who vanished under strange circumstances. It seemed Alyssa wasn't just one woman juggling multiple lives. She was part of a two-woman operation, each covering for the other. When confronted with Marissa's name, Ethan Hale broke again. I've seen her. She came to the farmhouse once. She told Alyssa that Noah was too smart, that he wouldn't stop digging. I think she was the one who decided what happened next. His words reframed everything. Maybe Alyssa wasn't the sole architect of Noah's disappearance. Maybe Marissa had been the executioner all along. Cold case detectives began connecting dots. In multiple cities where Alyssa and Marissa had crossed paths, unsolved disappearances followed. A billing auditor in Albany, a traveling nurse in Cleveland, a patient advocate in Trenton. Each one had raised red flags about irregularities. Each one had vanished. A week later, investigators uncovered a property deed hidden under one of Marissa's aliases. It was a lakeside cabin 2 states away, remote, inaccessible, and never disclosed on any of Alyssa's financials. The cabin had been purchased 2 weeks before Noah vanished. As the task force prepared to raid the cabin, satellite surveillance captured a figure arriving in a dark SUV. A woman with long hair stepped out, carrying supplies inside. It wasn't Alyssa, it was Marissa Lang, and if Noah was still alive, this might be where his trail finally ended. The cabin sat at the edge of a remote lake, its reflection rippling in the black water. Thick woods shielded it from any nearby road. A tactical team surrounded the perimeter before dawn, the silence broken only by the sound of crickets and the occasional snap of a twig. Through binoculars, Detective Hale saw movement inside. A woman with long hair, Marissa Lang, pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear. On the table beside her was a black duffel bag. At 5:12 a.m., the breach team stormed the cabin. Shouts echoed as officers cleared room by room. Marissa was tackled near the kitchen, her phone skittering across the floor. She didn't scream. She smiled. "You're too late," she whispered, but the real shock wasn't her words. It was what they found in the basement. Beneath the cabin, a hidden door led to a reinforced cellar. Inside, a makeshift cell sat in the corner, chains, a bucket, and a mattress on the floor. On the mattress lay torn clothing, a journal, and a cracked pair of glasses. They belonged to Noah Mercer, but Noah himself was gone. The journal's final entries were frantic, scrawled in uneven lines. "She visits at night, not Alyssa, the other one. She says Alyssa will take the blame, but she's the one keeping me here." And then, on the last page, "She told me the lake is where I'll end." Divers were deployed into the frigid lake. Hours later, they surfaced with a discovery: a weighted tarp snagged on the lake bed. Inside was another body. The remains were male, the size consistent with Noah, but waterlogging made immediate ID impossible. The ring on one finger, however, was unmistakable. Noah's wedding band, the twin of the one found earlier in the lockbox. When shown the ring, Marissa didn't flinch. She simply tilted her head and said, "You'll never know if it was him, or another one." The implication sent chills down every spine in the room. How many others were buried in this scheme? How many men had been silenced for stumbling too close? As forensics prepared to confirm the remains, a call came in from state police 2 counties away. A man resembling Noah had just been admitted to an ER, malnourished, dehydrated, but alive. If it was him, then whose body was pulled from the lake? Detective Hale raced to the regional ER with a team in tow. In a curtained trauma bay, under fluorescent lights, lay a man with a sunken face, cracked lips, and wrists marked with deep abrasions. When his eyes fluttered open, he whispered a single word: "Jenna." It was Noah's sister's name. When questioned, Noah struggled to string together full sentences. His voice shook. His eyes darted around the room as though expecting shadows. The cabin, the mine, she wasn't alone. Another woman, long hair. She said the lake was for someone else. He clutched Hale's hand and whispered one final warning before drifting into sedation. "Don't stop. There are more." Meanwhile, forensics confirmed the body pulled from the lake was not Noah. Dental records identified the victim as another missing man, a private investigator named Daniel Ross, had gone off the grid nearly 2 years earlier while chasing a fraud case. Ross's disappearance now connected directly to Alyssa and Marissa's network. He had found them and been silenced. The realization was chilling. Noah wasn't the only one targeted. Anyone who uncovered the truth had been trapped in the same cycle. Caleb Warren, Daniel Ross, and perhaps more whose names hadn't yet surfaced. The network wasn't just about Alyssa's marriages. It was about control, manipulation, and erasing anyone who threatened to expose them. Back in custody, Marissa refused to acknowledge no. Survival, you think saving one changes anything. You haven't seen the full picture. She leaned closer to Hale across the interrogation table, her voice low and deliberate. There are still others, and they're already gone. That night, while Noah lay under heavy guard in the hospital, an orderly discovered an envelope slipped beneath his bed. Inside was a Polaroid, grainy but clear enough. 3 terrified men sitting in a dimly lit room, bound and gagged. On the back of the photo were 4 words written in smudged ink. She still has them. The Polaroid was grainy but unmistakable. 3 men bound and gagged in a dimly lit room. Their eyes were wide with terror. One had a bruise on his cheek. Another wore a torn work shirt, and the third appeared barely conscious. On the back, in smeared ink, she still has them. It was proof that Noah wasn't the only one Alyssa and Marissa had ensnared. The network was larger, darker, and still active. Detectives enhanced the photo and matched partial IDs. 2 men were identified: Lucas Graham, a hospital billing auditor who'd gone missing the year prior; Victor Hayes, a private security consultant last seen investigating insurance fraud. The 3rd man remained unidentified. Each disappearance had once been isolated. Now the Polaroid connected them all. Forensics combed the Polaroid. Environmental clues. A cracked tile on the floor bore a distinct floral pattern, once common in mid-century clinics. The light fixture overhead was an industrial floor.